The allure of Star Citizen has always been, at least for me, its lofty vision of a complete science fiction combat environment, realized with both space, air, and first-person skirmishes. However, first-person has always been the neglected second-born in a family of three. That is, until recently. Hey guys, Morphologist here, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about those new weapon attachments, as well as some of the new features added in with 3.6 to make FPS combat a little bit more enjoyable. In the first part, we'll go over some of these new features, and then in the last part, we'll showcase these new weapon attachments and talk a little bit about how they look and how they feel. So if you guys didn't know, space is pretty big, and even with full servers in the future that have thousands of people in them, the chances of running into somebody is going to be quite slim if you're just somewhere randomly on a planet. So how do you encourage those entertaining interactions with people, either violent or otherwise? Well, one of the ways they're going to go about doing this is through the mission system. And one of those first missions to implement this sort of idea is the new Comrade mission set. Now, if you don't know what Comrades are, they are about 4 per orbital body, and they basically record what you do in that area of space. If you kill somebody, that's recorded as a crime. But if they happen to be off, well, as far as the law is concerned, it never happened. Now, in the past, this hasn't really been much of an issue because there weren't any consequences for murdering people. You just get a higher crime stat, and maybe somebody would hunt you down, and maybe they wouldn't. Most of the time, they wouldn't. 3.6 changes this with the law system. If you murder somebody, you're going to get a pretty big fine, about 10,000 AUEC, depending on which part of space you're in. And of course, you'll get a massive crime stat. But the consequences don't just end in fines. You're also going to have a real tough time landing anywhere. All the stations now have massive amounts of guns, and security will kill you inside of the station if you do make it past those guns. So you're probably getting where I'm going with this. If you're a pirate, you best want those stations off. And so you're going to be tasked with missions if you end up being a criminal in Star Citizen to flip the switch. It's not as easy as it was before, though. You're going to need a hacking chip, and that's part of the new hacking mechanic added in 3.6 as well. Don't worry, it's not hard. The minigame's not in the game yet. You just go there, put the chip in, and you have to click next a few times and stay pretty close to the terminal. But here's the best part. In attempting to turn off a Comrade, you automatically generate a mission server-wide for somebody to come and stop you. Yes, a real-life player will accept that mission and come and try to kill you. If you've been watching the background, you'll notice that I've taken one of these missions and I've just arrived at one of these Comrades. Unfortunately though, for this footage, if you're looking to see me dominate somebody, it doesn't end well for me. I somehow announced my arrival by flying around. I'm not sure, he probably heard me somehow, even though space doesn't have sound. I'm not quite sure how he knew I was coming, but he did. Try as I might to spray him down with energy shots from my Lumen 5 SMG added in 3.6, I was unfortunately taken out by the good old-fashioned P4AR. And this is a great first start in my opinion. They're a great alternative to doing the bunker missions, which currently only boast PvE, that's player versus environment versus NPCs, because the NPCs will never ever pose as much of a challenge as real-life players will. Now, despite that, they did improve 3.6's AI by making them actually work through some magic means, and so it's actually fun and challenging now, and potentially dangerous if you're not careful. Especially if you don't check your doors and corners, like I didn't in one of the missions I ran recently where they surrounded me and nearly killed me. And so all these missions and the polished AI really makes the new weapon attachments in 3.6 the cherry on top. So now, why don't we talk a bit about those, because as great as they are, they have some room for improvement. In case you're curious, pretty much every place that sells weapons now sells the new weapon attachments, with some exceptions. They don't sell all of them everywhere, and so you might have to go to a few stops in order to get the ones that you want. But the basic gist of it is that you now have access to 1x, 3x, 4x, and 8x scopes. The scopes that were already available on some of these weapons, for example the S71, the sniper rifle, are now removable and replaceable with some of the other weapon sight types. And of course, you can take those sights off those weapons and put them on anything else that you like within reason. For example, you can't put an 8x scope on a pistol. Equipping the weapon sights now to your weapons are pretty easy. All you have to do is put the weapon on your back and then go to the optics attachment. Scroll down to which attachment that you want on your weapon and then throw it on. Personally, I think this system works for now, but what I'd like to see in the future is something more like what you can do with ships currently when you outfit them with different weapon sets. A visual look at the weapon standing alone by itself, not on your back, with whatever attachments you've put onto the gun. I think that would be a lot more helpful to understand what they look like when you have the sight on it, and also to be able to attach sights to weapons that aren't currently equipped. But really, it's not a problem. It doesn't stop you from attaching sights. It's just a little bit troublesome. And just a quick side note before we go on here, if you do attach a weapon to a weapon sight and then lose that weapon, the weapon sight is gone as well. And so you've added a little bit more cost to your loss if you end up losing a PvP engagement. Personally though, I think it's worth it for me because I've always preferred hollow sights and scopes over using iron sights. I feel like I have a bit more handle of the weapon and part of my sight is in obscuring my target. The biggest improvement I see that could come from this is the actual reticles themselves. On the 1x scope, they seem to work fine, but once you get up to the 3, 4, and 8x scopes, they seem a little bit too dominant, and some of them seem a little unclear. For example, the 3x scope that I showed you was a little bit dim. Here on the 4x scope, I feel they're a little bit too big. They could be a bit finer, because at longer ranges, I kind of feel that they're going to obscure the target a little too much. They also don't actually zoom in by themselves. There's no effect for that. The whole screen zooms in with the scope itself, which seems a little bit like cheating. And I think the reason they're doing this is because they'd have to render the world twice. I understand that, but I would like to see them find a way to fake it at least to make it feel a little bit more realistic, because if you notice around the scope here, it's zoomed in to the exact same distance as the scope itself. The worst of the bunch, though, is the 8x scope. In my opinion, it's way too thick, and I don't understand what they're trying to do here on the edges of the screen. It's just black. It seems fake, and it kind of breaks my immersion a bit. I think it needs a lot more work in 3.6, and maybe that's what they're polishing right now. I'm not sure. As of right now, this was of 3.6M, so they may have changed it already by this point in time when this video releases. If not, though, it needs to change, because the stock weapon sights right now on the sniper rifle, this is the energy-based one, pretty much suck. They're unusable, there's no center reticle, and so trying to aim and hit your target first shot is pretty much impossible. On the positive side of things, the weapon sights look great on pistols. Here on the S38 pistol, which is already a pretty accurate weapon, having a 3x scope on it makes it a lot more usable in outdoor environments. Unfortunately, what's completely unusable is the ballistic LMG Gatling gun. Attaching a 4x scope to it, or any scope actually to it, makes it pretty much useless. The whole thing bounces around so much that it's just impossible to hit any target from any range. So I don't know if this is a bug or something. I hope they fix this before 3.6 goes to wider release. But overall, I think that it's a great first implementation. It's really just about polish at this point. They need to make them a little bit more immersive and make the reticles themselves a bit more fine, in my opinion. They are just a little clunky right now, and if they were to go back and make a second pass on them, I'm sure they would be wonderful. Also, if you guys didn't notice, as a little bonus, some of the weapons now have functional ammo counters on the backs of them, which is pretty awesome. So what this all adds up to is that 3.6 is shaping up to be a very well-rounded and enjoyable patch. Though it may not have any big features like we've had in previous patches like 3.3, like a big old planet or a nice big ship, what it does have is actual polish and some gameplay experience improvements that encourage player interaction and actually introduce a usable gameplay loop in the form of these ECN alerts. While intentional or not, I think it's a great way to try to counter the issues of server cap and population. Right now, we've only got 50 players per server due to server limitations and a lack of server meshing, a feature that they're currently working very hard to complete, but will still take some time to get out. And so, if they add more of these sorts of missions in the game, I predict a much more enjoyable and consistent experience when you log into Star Citizen. Every time you log in, you don't have to worry about sitting around and doing nothing. You'll actually have something to go out and do, and a reason to earn money to pick out new weapons, new weapon sights, new armor, and new ships to go do battle in. It's also wonderful that in this patch, 3.6, they're going to default VoIP on. That's voice over IP, and so you'll be able to communicate with people before you shoot them, giving you the chance to try to work things out vocally before you work them out with bullets. And because the law system will punish murdering a lot more than it has in the past, it'll make wanting to communicate with your foes a little bit more interesting and probably desired. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments section below. Do you like the weapon sights? What would you change about them if you could? Do you agree with my thoughts on them? Also, what do you think of the new mission system that encourages people to interact? The missions that spawn missions for players to come hunt you down. Now, there's a lot more to see in 3.6, and I'll be posting more videos later this week. But the only way for you guys to see that is for you to hit that subscribe button and like the video. That way you'll know the next time I post a video on Star Citizen. Anyway, guys, I hope you liked the video, and I hope you thought it was entertaining. If you didn't, you know what to do, and of course, I hope to see you guys next time.